My interest in making games stemmed from my love of make-believe, my love of movies, of theatre, of playing in the garden, and that sort of love of just stories and being immersed in a story, making them up, watching them, whatever. And we had games, played games, lots of games as a kid, but it was really, I think, only until I played Resident Evil. And Resident Evil was this really important moment for me where I was suddenly like, oh yeah, that's what I want to do. Because it brought together everything again. And it was, I didn't ever think there would be a thing that would surpass my love of film, but the feelings that were invoked in me when I was playing that just made me go, yep, that's it. I knew someone who had made games, so I knew it was a viable career option. I guess I hadn't thought about it until I had met somebody who'd actually made a game. And then I was like, oh, right, okay, people just do that. People just do that like they make films and they make TV. Okay, cool, I'll do that. I was living over here, and I had done work at a really cool record label in Sydney, and I had worked at this very cool web design company. And so when I came here, I was like a very little fish, and a lot of those areas, which I really liked, were just fairly oversubscribed. And at that point, games was the weird thing. In some respects, it was as simple as phoning Aardvark Swift, the recruitment agency, giving them my CV, and just going for entry-level jobs. The moment I would have felt I can make games, I don't know if I've ever found that moment. I mean, every game you make is so different. You're constantly learning how to make them, but I think probably the point where I felt like it was for me forever would have probably been probably actually during LittleBigPlanet. I mean, the Media Molecule was really important for me in terms of finding the group of people that I kind of want to grow old making games with. And that's the point where Media Molecule really brings together all of those things that I loved as a child. And it also enables other people to do all of those things that I loved to do as a child. So I love that what we're now doing has this beautiful circle of people creating their own stuff and sharing that. And in turn, we get to make up what the medium is. So yeah, I think it's sort of around that time where I started to feel like, yep, this is for me forever. Media Molecule started out by Alex Evans and Mark Healy, David Smith, Karima Tuini, and Chris Lee. And they started out together by basically getting a chance to speak to Phil Harrison at Sony. They decided that they were going to form a company, and then they came and chatted to me. I think it was after a Christmas party at my house, and they had basically said, we're going to do this thing, do you want to come along? And at that time, I was sort of at the point where I was finishing up at Criterion. We were just finishing Burnout 4. And I really, at that point, was like, do I stay in games, or do I go off and join the theatre, or do I do something completely different? Because I really wanted something completely different at that stage. And instead, I went home on my Christmas holidays and then went back to Australia, came back and was like, yep, let's do it. Right from the beginning of Media Molecule, we wanted to make stuff that allowed people to jam. And I think it actually really began as a music jamming idea right at the very, very, very beginning. But that sort of combined with a demo that Dave had made, which was this sort of physics demo with a very tactile character. Those sort of two ideas combined into what LittleBigPlanet became. A lot of what we do when we're at the early stages of a project is a little bit like having a chat. So we might be talking about the environments, and we'd have a little chat and then draw some pictures and then organise for people to sort of take on different areas and go and try things out. The Sackboy one was a really interesting one, because with that it was this sort of idea of a sort of very physical character that was led by the physics demo that Dave had made. And it was sort of building this sort of very craft-like sort of Hessian sack character. In my talk, I sort of show some of the early images of Sackboy, and you can really see this moment of Sackboy emerging throughout all the images. And that was really cool, because it would literally be just let's talk about this thing, and then people go off and sketch some ideas out, and we get back together. And a big part of games development is editing, where you're actually throwing a lot of ideas out there, and then you edit those and sort of choose the ones that you like the most, and you move to the next stage. Tearaway will always have a really special place in my heart in the development. I think because it was so many new things. None of us had ever worked on a handheld device before. We really loved the Vita. And it just started with this completely mad request from Rex for it to feel like you were poking your fingers through the back of the machine. And I'll never ever forget him saying that to me and just thinking, like, what? Like, how? And it was special because we tried so many ideas, and then we had this sort of wonderful moment where it was sort of like mixed moment. It was sad in one sense because we realized the scope of the game was too big, but brilliant in another because we focused down and we just did this very important few weeks of jamming. And from that, sort of we came out of that period with all of the core features of Tearaway. And it was really interesting to see how we just were able to hone that down and come up with something that was small, and to the fans that we have for Tearaway, they just really love it. And we get this amazing fan mail from them, sort of telling us about the experiences they had. And it's really special because in each project you get different responses from people, but this was the first game and really the only game that we've made that really just rested on its story, the experience alone. So it was very special to kind of to do that and for it to, you know, give people the feels like it did. Our goal is to make projects that innovate on the hardware of PlayStation. And that's not really ever been like a goal that we sort of set out for, but we love playing with hardware. We don't necessarily look at like, you know, where is the gap in the market. We formed around the idea of creative gaming. For us, it's more about what do we love doing, what do we feel we can pour our heart and souls into it, and then what resonates with people when we show it to them. And that's a really important thing. So, you know, going to shows and showing the community what we're making all the way throughout development is a really, really important part of the journey. I kind of feel like I can decide whatever type of game experience I want to have right now. If I feel like I need to be moved and I want to be moved, there are games out there that will do that. If I feel like I need my brain to be tickled, there's games that I can go do that with. If there's like experience, if I just want to just jump in and just have some action fun, there's projects that I can jump into there. Which is interesting because I've kind of always compared games to like the idea of going into a library and seeing lots of different types of books. And we're really getting there with games. I mean, now people are unafraid to give different types of genres a go, and I think that's really amazing. You know, my whole shtick with making games is it's all about the people, and it's all about the people working together. I mean, without that happening, you don't have anything. So, you know, teamwork, being able to work together, being able to have people involved in the process who are there to help that process work is really important. I'm a really big believer in HR. I think it's a really important aspect and a very important skill, and one that in games development isn't always spoken about, but we deal with a lot of very creative people. We have to solve thousands of problems along the way, and there is every single day the kind of clash of humanity. And I think it's very important that we do put the right structures in place for people so that they can have a successful career and grow and have the backup and support from the management of a studio. Since I joined the industry, I feel like it's changed a lot, and I always, I feel like I live in a bubble. Like in Media Molecule, I'm very much able to influence what we do. I'm able to influence the projects and how we recruit people, and what our agenda is there. And I have put a lot of effort into us sort of finding more women to join the studio. We are at 38% now, which I'm really happy with. I think that's really great. But that has actually taken a lot of effort. I think we're there when that's not an effort. I think we're there when young women, so under 10, under 5 even, are not being immediately put off technology as being for them, or construction being for them. And it's those sorts of unconscious bias that does exist, and it still exists within toys, and it still exists within the world. So it's like, I think for me, the moment that I will sort of drop down my priority list will be the point at which there are no blockages along the way, and those blockages still exist. I love the games industry. I feel like we're on the cusp of, I don't know, how do I say this? Like, one of the reasons I'm a big advocate for the industry is that it's the medium of our time. And if you there literally is nothing that we cannot make up. And then if we can make it up, then we can make a game about it. I feel like we all try so hard within the industry to, bring our humanity through and change it from being, give people these very human experiences via technology. The reason I'm really excited is I think our future is really bright, and I really want more people to join the industry. I love the idea of people just making games as a hobby. Like, I think it would be brilliant to get over the fact that everybody needs to be a professional. They don't. You don't. Not everybody who picks up a guitar needs to make a top 10 album. There is a joy in creating games just all on their own. And the amazing thing is just like how brilliant it is, how much it gets you thinking, like the systems design, composition, working with people. It's a really, really good hobby. I'm just very excited. One of the things that I'd say that has definitely changed over the years is how, we can firmly say that games are sort of a part of popular culture. And I think it's brilliant that you'll see so many exhibitions at big museums that cover games these days. I think it's great to be here at BAFTA and talking to people, because that sort of crosses over also. I think we need to be more visible. One of the reasons that we sort of, even I'll put myself out there is I think it's important for people to know you don't literally have needed to play games every single day of your life to be welcome to the industry. And in fact, we need all sorts of people. I think that's really important. With the young people that we meet, and particularly students that we meet, they are more cross-pollinated with disciplines than traditionally, and I think that's really great. You'll meet artists who actually sound designers, and programmers who are artists, and I love that. I think this next generation that are coming through, they're not so binary in terms of I'm just an artist or I'm just a designer, and I think that fluidity will really impact the games industry really positively.